The Man in Black. What a character. This guy is all over The Dark Tower. He's all over Stephen King's works in general. I love him so much. And we're going to answer the question today. Is he good or is he bad? Is the Man in Black, Randall Flagg, Richard Fannin, all of his other aliases, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Stay tuned to find out all that and more today on Dark Tower YouTube. My name is Michelle McEwen. I am your host. And we are here to talk about the Man in Black. This is going to be a series, I think, where we're going to just look at different facets of this dude and explore and deep dive, which is what we do here at Dark Tower YouTube, looking at the psychological aspects of this book, the magic, the mystery, the metaphysics, all of that fun stuff. And I'm excited because today I have a special guest with me here who also loves the Dark Tower, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you all. Hello, Ash. Thanks for being here with me.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yes, I am Ash. I've been a huge fan of Stephen King and the Dark Tower series for a very long time, and your other videos had sort of inspired me to do a closer reading, so I'm really excited to kind of dig into everything.
Yeah. And guys, Ash sent me some notes on one of, the show notes that I made, and she's smart and she knows what's up. And Ash, you've read through once and you're on your second reread, right?
Yes. And this time I'm doing, a very, very in-depth reading. I've got a few different motifs and themes that I'm looking at, as well as archetypes and obviously characters, including the Man in Black, who is one of my favorites.
Yes, we're gonna nerd out on this, and I'm just so excited because look at us, like two women in this space. Have you ever seen two women in this space talking about the Dark Tower? There's some kind. What's that? The Bechdel test. You know that thing in the movie.
Yes, Bechdel test. Yeah.
I haven't come. There's some joke in there or some truth in there doing here, but I didn't plan it out enough to know. But yeah, two women talking about the Dark Tower. Here we are. All right, so let's get into it. And we're talking about the Man in Black. And he's a bad guy, right? Obviously, everyone's like, yeah, he's the bad guy. And even the first sentence of this book, of the series rather, the first sentence of The Gunslinger, the first sentence in the series, everybody knows this who's watching this video. Oh, you know what I didn't say? I forgot about the spoilers. Guys, if you haven't read the whole series, this is not for you because we're going to spoil it. So turn this off and come back once you've finished. There are spoilers here abounding. So this is, that's your warning, okay? Okay, so first sentence of the series, first sentence of the first book of the series, the Man in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Anytime I read that sentence, I just have to stop because it stops my heart. Do you remember reading that sentence for the first time?
It is quite probably the best first sentence of a book to exist.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. 100%. Yes. And I've talked about this in other videos, but we have protagonist, antagonist, setting, and action all in one sentence. And you're immediately like, what is happening? I need to know all about 100%. This. And you're just hooked from minute one.
Yeah.
But here in talking about the Man in Black specifically, we have this idea that, okay, so first of all, the book is called The Gunslinger. And we read this sentence and we're like, the Man in Black fled. He fled and the gunslinger followed. And that's already setting up this idea of the gunslinger obviously is the good guy.
Right.
And the Man in Black fled. So he did something bad. He's running away, right? And the gunslinger followed. He didn't chase. He's not panicked. He's not desperate to catch him. We have this image of this stolid, just moving forward confidently, oh, and we're he is going to catch that guy.
Right.
No doubt he's going to catch that guy. But so it sets up this idea in our minds of he's the bad guy. Obviously he's the bad guy. Of course the gunslinger is the good guy. But this question comes up pretty quickly in the Gunslinger when Roland and Jake are together, and you'll remember that Jake encountered the Man in Black. Do you want to quickly tell us what happened with Jake and the Man in Black?
Yeah. we meet Jake at the way station, and he doesn't really know how he got there. And then Roland kind of puts him under with like hypnosis to tell the story. And he was in our world, the world before it had moved on, like Roland's. And he assumed that the man in black was a priest because he's dressed in that, black robe. And he pushes him in front of a car, and Jake dies and wakes up in Roland's world.
Yeah, so that's bad. We'd be like, oh, he pushed a little kid in front of a car. That's not something a good guy does, argue. That was bad. And then they don't meet. Like, the man in black comes to the way station and spends the night, but he doesn't interact with Jake. Jake says I hid away.
He was scared of him, probably remembering, or at least subconsciously remembering what had happened to him, and how he had died. So he managed to, stay out of his way because he was so terrified of him.
Yeah, probably a good move. I think I would have done the same thing there with Jake.
Yeah.
But Roland and Jake are talking, and I don't remember if this is after he was hypnotized or not, but Jake directly asks Roland, he says, and King writes, "Is he a bad man?"
Yes.
And Roland says, "I guess that depends on where you're standing." The gunslinger said absently. He got up and pitched his cigarette out onto the hardpan. "I'm going to sleep." And it's like, damn, that's unexpected.
Yeah.
And interesting. When we've had this idea set up, good guy and bad guy, and that seems very clear cut. But right here, I think that already is getting kind of tossed to the side, or tossed up a little bit by our protagonist himself, right?
Yes. I do think that a lot of times Roland struggles with his own morality, and he believes that he's having to do these actions that aren't necessarily good, but they are for good, if that makes sense. So he is basically willing to tarnish his soul in order to get where he needs to be, which he believes is the tower. And so if you yourself don't view yourself as a good person, then maybe your enemy, you have a hard time viewing them as necessarily bad because you know that you're not all good.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of projection there?
Maybe. I think that he definitely sees versions of himself within the Man in Black. I think that he sees that mirroring and struggles with that, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting, and we'll have to get into that at some point. Maybe in this video, maybe not, guys. But what we would expect from any other story is, when asked that question, the good guy says, that guy's the worst motherfucker we've ever seen, and he needs to be destroyed, and he will be punished, and you're, like, I'm going to do it because he's the baddest baddie of them all, or something. But none of that. So very interesting psychological turn there, like you kind of pointed out. And he's also detached about it. So I think that kind of lends a little more weight to, like, something funny is going on here.
Yeah.
He's not just saying, oh, I don't know, it depends. But the whole thing to me just feels kind of weird, because it's like, well, where are you standing, Roland?
Right.
Because Jake is asking you. He's asking you. And then who would be, like, it depends where you're standing. Like, well, then who would be seeing him as a good guy, Roland? But we don't get any answers there. Just more questions, I think.
Right. Yes. I do think also, I know that when Roland ends up having his meeting with the Man in Black near the end of the Gunslinger, he says specifically, you're not, was it Marilyn? Which wizard was?
Yeah, Marilyn.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, you're not Marilyn at all. So I think that he kind of assumed that that's who he was chasing. And then when they end up meeting, he realizes.
Martin. He says, you're not Martin.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that because of the revolution, he's also, if he's assuming that this is that wizard, then according to a lot of people, that was like someone that helped free them, even though it ended up, maybe not going great because now they're in like a post-apocalyptic state. But maybe that also kind of played into where Roland is like, it depends on where you stand, because he knows that the gunslingers were sort of the class that was overthrown by this wizard.
Yeah, the politics of Gilead, that's a whole different show, but that's fascinating because we do get into the leader of that revolutionary faction being called the Good Man.
Right.
So that and a whole other separate show is whether or not the man in black is the good man or not. And guys, we're going to do a whole show about that because there's a lot of controversy and debate and interesting conversation around that question.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, the good man led that revolution.
Yes.
And the fact that King chose that name, I think, is telling us, the reader, something.
Right.
Okay, so where are we? Okay, so what else is happening in the Gunslinger that's making us kind of make a decision about, is this a bad guy and how bad is he? So we have some bad stuff that happens. So he brings Nord back from the dead, and it's not in the fun, like, biblical raising of Lazarus kind of like miraculous thing. He's like spitting on him, and it's really gross and
jumping
like
over him.
It makes me feel disgusting every time.
Yeah.
Every time I read that.
Well, and sort of everybody that was in the room kind of went temporarily mad, like just full hysteria. There were people that were laughing that turned into crying, and crying that turned into laughing, and screaming, and people leaving.
Yeah.
It was a very disturbing scene. Like, it's meant to show like very, very dark magic for sure.
Yeah, we get a visceral sense there of, this is not beautiful, wonderful. This isn't a wonderful dude. He allegedly impregnates Sylvia Pittston with the demon baby, which is another interesting part of the book. Do you have anything to say about that?
I don't know that the baby ever existed.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I think that they definitely probably had sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, that's like a power exchange thing, and because she was so powerful in also a very dark way, and a lot of her power was drawn from that sensuality. Even Roland was very attracted to her and hated that because he was also disgusted by her. And I think that, I don't know, I just don't think that the demon baby existed, but I do think that there were probably relations. And he might have told her that, but I don't think that it was real.
Right. And yeah, because and even, I think even Roland says something like that at the end. He's like, there was no baby. Yeah. And that's, again, King telling us something through the character, making us wonder what really happened here. But yeah, for sure there was that power exchange. And yeah, I mean, that's something that I think in, oh gosh, I don't remember what episode of The Gunslinger it was, where I was talking about sex in exchange for information, and how Roland with Allie, and then the Oracle, and like that's a thing, and like tying kind
100%.
of violence with sex as a Stephen King thing as well, right?
Yes, 100%, yeah.
So we'll be on the lookout for that, but here's another instance of that, right?
Yes, yeah.
What else? Okay, so then he's leaving that 19 trap for Allie. So that's also diabolical and pretty awful when we see that plan is laid.
Yes. And Nort being crucified.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the man in black presumably was gone by that point, but what impact did he have on the town psychologically through all of his shenanigans bringing back Nort in the first place?
Yeah. And I do think, again, with that exchange of power with Sylvia Pittston, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that she probably became, even just temporarily, more powerful. Her power of like speech, her magnetism and things, so that she was able to call that mob and call the entire town to attack Roland. I don't think that she would have been able to do that without the Man in Black.
That's fascinating. I've never thought about that before, but you're right, because he does have a great deal of power. And
Yes.
guys, that's a totally different episode. Like, how much power does he have really? But
Right.
I think you're there. I think he does have some kind of charisma, magnetic something going on that impacted everybody there.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so all of that's happening, and we're kind of like, okay, he's a bad guy. We forgot. We were like, he's bad. Well, is he bad? Yeah, he's bad. And then the end of the book happens. Now, the end of the Gunslinger, chapter 5, is like, that's where in this series you get to that chapter and everything changes.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not what I expected at all. We have the book is called The Gunslinger. The Man in Black fled. The Gunslinger follows. We're like, he's going to catch that guy. And there's going to be some kind of wizard gun battle, obviously.
Right.
That's not what happened.
Yeah. Instead, he just reads some tarot cards. Very, very weird twist. Definitely, makes sense within the series, but it is such a... And I think that the reader is feeling Roland's confusion, because he also assumed there would be a showdown, and the Man in Black is like, we're just going to talk, actually. So just sit down. Your guns can't hurt me. Roland doesn't want to talk and tries to shoot him multiple times, both in this book and throughout the series, and it's never able to affect him physically. He cannot be killed by Roland.
Yeah, which is super interesting, because Roland doesn't miss. We know that about him. He doesn't miss. So something else is going on there. Something magical, extra physical is happening there where he actually can't.
And I do think it specifically said that he shot 12 bullets, which means he shot both guns like to completion right at the before the meeting, and the Man in Black just laughs and is like, "No, sit down."
Yeah. And the same thing happens. The same thing happens in Wizard and Glass, I think, when he catches up with them in the Emerald Palace and tries to shoot him yet again.
Yeah.
But there's something, isn't there? We're getting off topic a little bit here, but now we're doing it. Isn't there something where it's his guns that he can't kill? So his sandalwood grip, the big guns, don't work against the Man in Black. But then he's going to get Jake's, and you might not remember this, I'm putting you on the spot, but I think he takes Jake's gun, like that Jake took from New York City, and then like Flag is in trouble. Guys, like we're going to revisit that when we get to Wizard and Glass in a lot of time by the time we get to that book. But yeah, there's definitely something there. And he does try to shoot at the Man in Black earlier in the Gunslinger as well, when they find him by the waterfall, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He misses those times. And I think that's specifically because of Jake. Because his thoughts are on Jake. And then once Jake has died and he like meets them, or he meets the Man in Black, then he's able to shoot without missing.
Right. And he can't shoot him. So there's no shootout, and people are like, what is happening? We're just going to talk, and we're just going to have this exposition of life, the universe, and everything.
Yes.
For 25 pages. We're going to get a tarot reading. And these things are awesome. They're truthful. They're interesting. I don't think they're particularly helpful to what Roland is trying to do. Like at the end of the book, we're kind of like, we don't really know anything more about the tower. There was a prediction that the Oracle also gave him, so I guess those things are going to happen or they're not. But like, we're not super helped out, but it's nothing malicious. There's no bad intent from the Man in Black there.
I think the only thing that could be seen as sort of malicious is honestly the vision of the universe that he gives him. And the way that I don't know specifically that it was malicious or not, but I do think that it's really interesting. The way that Roland reacts to that is very much the same way that he reacts when he gets to the top of the tower. So I think that potentially the vision of the universe that the Man in Black was trying to give him might have been trying to show him the loop, and Roland's brain shut it down.
Huh.
I don't have proof of that, just except in how almost exactly it is mirrored in the epilogue.
Yeah, that's interesting because it is it's this infinity. It's
Yeah.
like having Roland grapple with the idea of infinite space and size he talks
Yes.
about, and it kind of breaks Roland's brain.
Yeah.
Right. So all of this is kind of leaving us saying, what is happening here? Who is this person? At the end of the Gunslinger, we're like, who is this man? Because it's
Right.
not what we expected. And we're more questioning than ever. What
Yes.
is his deal? What
Well,
is his role here?
yeah, and also, he's talking about how his master is controlling the time to like stop it so that the night can be as long as possible, as long as needed. And then
Mm-hmm.
when Roland sort of comes to, he's 10 years older and the Man in Black is just a skeleton. And obviously we learn that that's, what was planted there, but at the end of the Gunslinger, you're like, okay, so this guy just gave him a tarot reading and then died.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of the worst tarot reading too, because we're like, we already know these things. We already learned this information. I mean, some of it's interesting, but it's
Yes.
not like, it's not the best tarot reading because we don't really learn anything new. And then we get interesting information about the loop, which we're going to talk about next, because we kind of have to think about, if we're kind of figuring this man out, we have to think about his motivation.
Yes.
Is he good or is he bad? Well, that depends. Like, where is he coming from and what is he trying to do? And if we can understand that, then maybe we have a shot at being able to define is he good or bad. And the deal is he's part of the loop.
Yes.
And we know that because he tells us that explicitly.
Yes. Which means he's aware.
He's aware on some level, because everyone's like, oh, at the end of the Dark Tower, we're like, oh, poor Roland, like he has to repeat this over and over again. But everybody forgets about the Man in Black,
right,
having to repeat this as well, because he's a part of it. And I'm trying to find that quote. Okay, so here's the quote. So if you guys out there, and this happens sometimes, that people are not aware, they don't realize this because it's subtle, that we hear about. And if you haven't finished the book, if you haven't finished the series, I keep calling it a book, it's a long ass book. If you haven't finished the series, then you don't know that this is a cycle, that this is a loop.
right.
So the things that the Man in Black is saying at the end of the Gunslinger aren't necessarily like firing until you go back and reread it. And then you're like, oh shit, like he told us all along.
Yes.
So here's what King says, and then we can talk about that a little bit. So this is where Roland and the Man in Black are having their palaver after the tarot reading. And the Man in Black says, King writes, I am the furthest minion of he who now rules the Dark Tower, and earth has been given into that king's red hand. Red? Why do you say red? Never mind. We'll not speak of him, although you'll learn more than you cared if you press on. What hurt you once will hurt you twice. This is not the beginning, but the beginning's end. You do well to remember that, but you never do. I don't understand. No, you don't. You never did. You never will. You have no imagination. You're blind that way. So, dang, like once you've read the end of The Dark Tower, that hits a little differently, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's for sure aware of this loop. And there's another part I think that you pulled out too, right? I don't know. We'll get to it if we get to it. But there's another part where we're just kind of like, he knows what's up in any event. And knowing that you're in a loop like that, you probably want to get out of it. We're going to make an assumption here that he does not want to be a part of this never-ending cycle, because that sucks. And there's questions about that, because he, once you read through the series and he's killed the way that he's killed, there's some questions there, because you're like, well, he didn't know that was coming. So was that different than the last cycle?
Right.
Or is it the same and he just doesn't have that kind of a recollection of all the things? It's probably slightly different. Again, that's a different show. Um, but he's aware that there's a loop. He probably wants to get out of it. And so that's going to lead to him doing everything that he does
Yes.
throughout the series, if we want to look at it that way, right?
Yes. And I do think also that he doesn't necessarily care about Roland, I guess, redeeming himself, but he cares about breaking the loop. And if that is the easiest way to break the loop, then we're going to go that route so that we can get out of it. So, like, again, he killed a 10-year-old boy by shoving him in front of a car.
Mm-hmm.
But that was to get him to Roland.
Yeah.
Specifically because
Mm-hmm.
Jake is sort of the key of, if he can get Roland to give up the tower and just go with Jake, the loop would end. So I think that he sort of has probably done it so many times at this point. He's like, yeah, why not just shove him in front of a car? That'll be the easiest way to get him there, you know?
This poor kid has been
I
through
know. Been
more
through the ringer.
Oh, this poor kid. It's like, what a life, what a lives that he's led.
I know.
But yeah, but we never think about that as like some kind of push towards salvation. Like
Yeah.
Jake's death for the salvation of Roland, which I think we both agree that that's kind of the linchpin of the whole thing. Is
Yeah.
like, you gotta not drop the kid. You
Yeah.
can't be the good guy, Roland. You can't be the protagonist and also murder a child. Like,
Right.
that's what you gotta fix.
Yeah.
And by the time he talks to the man in black, he didn't do the right thing. He's
Right.
already dropped Jake. And so the man in black is like, oh,
We're doing it again.
we're doing it again.
Yeah.
Already, like, he already knows. And he's like, damn, how long is this going to take?
Right. And that's why he's like, well, I guess, you know, because he does try to say, like, please, like, just give up the tower, stop. And Roland is just so fixated on it. He's like, I can't, that's my mission. We don't know why it's his mission. We just know that that's what he says he needs to do. But I think that's also sort of the reason why when we do meet the man in black, he seems a little bit unhinged. He seems giddy.
Yeah.
He's playful.
Yeah.
He's chaotic. You don't know what's going to happen next with him. You don't know what he's going to say next or how he's going to act because he is just being so erratic. And I think that that's probably because he's like, we're having to do this whole entire cycle again.
Oh.
I thought I did it right. I thought that he was going to save him this time, and he didn't because he never learns, and now we're doing it again.
Yeah, that's such a good point because he's kind of a weirdo, and he is. The word giddy is used. Like, what has he got to be giddy about?
Like, why are you laughing right now? Like, what? You know, he's just fully unhinged. He really is. Like, and you don't know if it's because he is insane or if it's just because he's, you know, playing with Roland. But I think it might just be a little bit of both because, of course, you're going to feel like, okay, it doesn't matter what I do at this point because we're for sure having to do it at least one more time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he might believe that there is a way once he draws the 3 and goes on that quest, he's potentially able to give up the tower, but I think that he knows once he's dropped Jake, he has decided that it's, you know, a lost cause at this point.
Yeah, right, because he could still save the tower, fix the beam, save the tower, and still not go there and just turn around at that point, which would also break the cycle.
Yeah.
But what an interesting idea that the man in black is insane because he's been through this and he remembers it.
Yeah.
That would drive anybody bonkers. And he has to be the one that brings Jake into this world again, into Roland's world again and again. And he has to be the one that is providing the temptation at the end of the end of chapter 4 in the Gunslinger, when Roland is like, oh, this is it. there's the kid hanging and there's the man in black. The man in black has to say, now or never, choose me and get to the tower, or choose the kid and you'll never see me again, knowing that like this choice is going to repeat that cycle or not.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know that for a fact, but we do know that he's cycling. We do know that he's part of the loop. And so it's so fascinating just to think about what that means to his character and his motivations.
Yes, 100%. Because like throughout the Gunslinger especially, it's setting up that this is like a purgatorial state for Roland, right? Even though we don't know that, we know that the world has moved on and that they are in a post-apocalyptic kind of situation, but we don't know for sure if he's alive or dead. And this is like that because like when he meets the man in Tull, or after Tull, and he asks
Brown,
and he says, he asks if he believes in the afterlife, and Brown says, I think this is it. You know, at one point when the man in black goes to Nort, when he's dead, and Allie asks about him, he specifically says he's as dead as anybody, as dead as you. So there's things like that, but I feel like a lot of the characters that we meet don't necessarily know that they're in the loop. So it's interesting to see the ones that kind of feel it versus the ones that are 100% sure, like the man in black 100% knows. And then, you know, people like Brown seem to feel it. They feel the lack of time, but they aren't aware exactly what's going on.
Yeah, great point about Brown, because that's the first thing he asks Roland, is he alive or dead?
Yeah.
That's not the first thing that you say to somebody.
Right.
I don't care where you live.
Right.
Like, that's a weird question to ask somebody unless you're privy to some kind of other information or something else is going on. So, yeah, so fun to think about. So, like, you know, not dropping Jake, turning around, that's one way to do this. You know, he could also, just like you said, like hope that this works out and kind of get there as a redeemed man. And we see that happening throughout the series. And then, you know, we have the man in black in book 4 at the end of the Emerald. So they're in the Emerald Palace, and they kill the TikTok man. Oop, my battery's going to run out soon. They kill the TikTok man pretty easily. So that was nothing. Like, they just shoot him and he's dead. And then they're going to kill Flag, I think, with Jake's gun. And Flag disappears. And I'm calling him Flag, but the man in black, whoever, this guy, he disappears into this puff of smoke and he's gone. And then, like, they go into the grapefruit and have the whole experience seeing Roland kill his mother. And then it's like this magical thing that happens where they're transported miles away from the Emerald Palace, down the road, back on the path of the beam. They've been packed a lunch. They have food. They have drinks. And that was with a little note from Randall Flagg saying, here you go. Like, so that's weird. But it's also kind of like he just saw the camaraderie between this group and this, you know, the salvation that Roland did bring Jake back. He did. And now they're this team, they're this unit, and they're in it together and they're going for it. And maybe, just maybe, Flag is like, like maybe Roland could be. Maybe it's not all about dropping Jake. Maybe he could save himself still yet.
Yeah, I do think that if Roland does drop Jake, like he does in this cycle, I think that potentially the Man in Black's next idea would be if they all reach the tower together as like the quartet. But if any of them die, then that's probably having to like for sure be repeated. Because it's sort of like his quartet like 2.0, because a lot of, you know, the characters sort of mirror his original group. So I think that maybe the Man in Black's next thing and why he gives them this sort of boon of like food and going back to where they need to be and everything is because he thinks maybe if they all reach the tower together, then it can be done.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. And of course that doesn't happen this time.
Right.
Sadly. So he has to do it again. But then there's just like chaotic things that are happening with the Man in Black. like that is just one of them. But I think we gave one possible explanation for it. But it could also be like just he already knows we're doomed now, so why not just have a little fun and
100%.
give them some soda? Why the hell not? And he's like, you're gonna die anyway. I don't care.
Right. He does feel very like fae coded, like in a lot of fantasy and mythology and folklore.
Yeah,
The
pup.
fae, yes, the fae are very chaotic neutral. They're not good or bad. They are just doing their thing for themselves, and you can't really understand their morality from a human standpoint because you don't know their motivations and you don't know exactly what they're trying to do. And so even though the Man in Black is, I'm pretty sure they specifically describe him as human. Even with that, he does feel like he sort of takes some of those fae tropes and puts them onto the Man in Black in that way.
For sure. He sows seeds of just random chaos, it feels like at certain points, but we're trying to figure him out, but he's not to be figured out. And King lights it. That's so much more interesting ultimately than a bad guy who's just doing bad things the whole time and he must be defeated. This is so much more interesting than that.
Yeah.
And I guess we're running out of time because my battery's going to die. The one other thing I want to point to at the end of the Gunslinger before we wrap is the 7th card. So he's drawing these tarot cards, and the first couple are like, we already heard this from the Oracle, like it's who he's going to draw, and then the Tower, placed over Roland's card, and Roland's like, what does that mean? And we're like, we know what it means. Everybody knows what that means, dude. Like, get with it. But then he draws death, but not for you, which we heard from the Oracle. And then he draws life,
but not for
you. And I want to read this the way that King wrote it. The 7th card is life. The Man in Black said softly, but not for you. Where does it fit the pattern? That is not for you to know now, the Man in Black said, or for me to know. And I think that's, when you read that, what were you thinking about all of this? Because that's a big one, I feel like.
It is. I do feel like it is specifically referring to maybe the quartet when those three meet up again, when Eddie and Jake and Susanna meet up again, at the very end of the series. I feel like that might be the life. And Oi, he's like a dog now, but Oi's also there. So I think that might be the life he was referring to. But it could also be life in general. I know, yeah. It could also be specifically that by saving the tower, he's saving everything, and without that, there wouldn't be continued life. I'm not sure. I personally read it as referring to the quartet being together again.
Damn, I never thought of it like that. That made me feel sad.
What about you? What did you think when you read it?
I had no idea the first time I read it.
Oh, yeah, the first time, no idea.
No idea. But then I kept reading it and I thought, and then I reread the original Gunslinger versus the revised edition. And that word now, Stephen King added that word to the sentence, which I think is fascinating.
It really
that is not for you to know now, which tells us there's some shred of hope there that he will be told, or the Man in Black will know, because he says, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to know how this ends, or I guess how it ends ultimately, or how you get redemption. So there's something in there too. Let us know in the comments, guys. What do you think about this? Because it feels big. This is not for you to know now.
Yeah.
It originally just said that is not for you to know, period. That's a different statement.
It really is.
So we're gonna wrap before the phone dies and just kind of say, we told you that we were going to decide if he was good or bad. Surprise! We did not. And that's exactly, I think, where King wants this character to live and to be.
Yes.
And I think kind of hitting on Ash's idea of like that playful Puck fairy energy feels like a good fit. So in chaos just for the hell of it, or just because I'm in this loop and I'm gonna
Right.
kill some time here
Right.
before we
Because
start
we're on
over.
number 19.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a minute. Let's play around.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of crazy, guys. Feeling kind of. If I can do Jack Torrance from The Shining.
Yeah.
I'm a little,
Yeah.
feeling a little twitchy. Yeah. All right. Well, that was awesome. Everybody, thanks for listening. Do us a favor and like this if you liked it. Give us a round of applause for Ash. If you would love to talk to me and Ash and whoever about the Dark Tower, always looking for interested folks to chit chat and do the deep psychological diving, the deep diving that we're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much just for being a part of this, because it really makes me happy to be able to do it. And Ash, did you have a good time? How was that?
I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. And I
had a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I had a ton of fun. Wow.
Excited.
So we will be back with something else for you, probably more on the Man in Black. Until then, my Dark Tower friends, may you have long days and pleasant nights.